Hello, my wonderful, wonderful Patreons. Well, when I was looking at what to talk about today, I was flummoxed. I said, well, it's question and answer time, and we look at those questions, we look at those answers, but it seemed to me as if that was for the general consumption of the general public and not for you guys. Now, something that I have been thinking about and have been pondering around is the idea of LARPing. Now, the swords behind me, of course, are LARP swords, and the idea of LARPing, and for those of you who don't know, live action role-playing, LARPing. LARPing is the idea where you actually physically embody your character and you physically running around a field with foam swords and foam armor and little magic spell packets that are made out of bits of cloth and birdseed or however, or you run around with airsoft guns shooting at one another if you're Nazis or Germans or British defending against them, or whatever the setting might be for the LARP. And LARP span almost all of the settings that there are out there. If you haven't tried LARPing, I would say perhaps now's the time to do it. Look at the next couple months in your area, there's bound to be a LARP of some sort going on, and give it a try. Now, when I first moved to Johannesburg, where there was a giant LARP, there were several running actually, everybody kept begging me to join. They said, come and join the LARP, you'll see that it's a totally different experience to playing around the table. And for 3 years, I resisted most emphatically, saying, mine is the theatre of the mind. I have no need to go out and run around. Besides, I'm fat and slow and will make an easy target for anybody. So there was a certain reluctance to join the LARP community. And then I did. I took a chance and joined the LARP community. And it is a totally different experience, a completely different type of role-playing altogether. And if you have any doubts about your abilities to stay in character for a certain duration of time, like 3 or 4 days, well, this certainly puts it to the test. And it really does change your perspective. For me as a GM, it really allowed me to focus on getting accents right, because I LARP different characters who've got different accents and talk in different ways. And to really focus on that sort of thing, and then to focus on how to build inter-character relationships, because there are obviously downtimes during combats and whilst they're setting up the next scenario, or whilst you're walking physically from one side of the camp to the other. We had a LARP the other day, a World War II LARP, where the total length of the course was just over 3 kilometers. And when you're walking from one side to the other, 3 kilometers can take 20 minutes or so, if not longer, depending on how quick you're moving and whether you're leopard crawling through the underbrush and that kind of thing. And it gives you plenty of opportunity to have a nice loud conversation with your companions as you're moving around. Now, again, that brought back the idea that in role-playing often we'll have characters having big conversations and they get ambushed, or they don't get ambushed because we think, well, that all-important hearing or perception or awareness check is not that important. But I can tell you the voice carries like you cannot believe, and if you're busy discussing the merits of Stalin's new invasion plans for Poland, or defense plans for Poland, I should say, they will hear you over quite some distance. And they will be able to shoot you quite easily if you are dressed in anything silly, such as a white laboratory coat, which I was at the time because, well, I was a doctor and doctors wear white lab coats. So anyway, the idea behind LARPing and running around and being crazy and silly for a weekend is to perhaps unlock a different perspective on the tactile, the physical side of things. My character, the one character, wears plate armor, which is made out of camping foam, but it is a complete body set. And let me tell you, even in the midst of our winter, where it reaches, a miserable minus, well, I would say minus, but it doesn't ever get there. It gets to about 3 degrees Celsius, 15 during the day. That armor gets very hot and very, very cumbersome. And after a while you go, I'm not going to go into combat with my armor on. I'll just dodge more. Of course, that doesn't necessarily work, but one gets lazy. And to put on a simple piece of foam armor with straps and things can take quite a large amount of time. Again, it gave me a lot more appreciation for the reality of combat, for the reality of these situations. Now, the World War II LARP that I play, the guys have got an actual machine gun that sits on a tripod and it just spews out these pellets everywhere, these little plastic balls, which they sting if they hit you and you're at close range. They'll break the skin, but they're not nearly as bad as paintball. But standing there, listening to the sound of that rat-a-tat-tat-tat-tat-tat-tat, not wanting to step out from cover because, well, there's just nowhere else to go and you will get hit, was quite the experience. And it's something that I think has helped improve the way that I describe certain situations within the game, is I try and absorb as much of the emotions that I'm feeling to then impart into my NPCs. And of course, it's always fun dressing up as a wizard and running around with a foam sword and trying to hit your opponents. That always is a nice change of pace. So if you haven't tried LARPing, I would suggest that you give it a try. And of course, in the United States, there is the year of LARP, where you spend literally an entire year running around, going to all of the different states and participating in LARPs wherever they might be. And it could be quite an interesting experience. Now, of course, if there are no LARPs nearby, you can simulate your own fairly easily. After all, a LARP is just a bunch of people dressed up in funny bits of armor or fabric or Nazi uniforms or stormtrooper uniforms or whatever the LARP space might be. And if you're really lazy, you could LARP Vampire the Masquerade in a modern setting where then everyone just wears what they would normally wear. And of course, then you just run it. Now, of course, there are different types of LARPs, and there's some LARPs where there are no statistics. It's all just you get given clues, and you have to, through discourse, through dialogue, through talking, try and uncover those clues from your fellows who are in the same building and who have similar information or are trying to find their own things. And it's about who uncovers that information first and stops the assassination or promotes it or helps it along or distracts or however that might be. So it doesn't have to be overly complicated. It can be very, very simple. Again, like I said, it just gives you a totally different perspective on the entire situation around that. So I would thoroughly, thoroughly recommend that you go and have a look at it. If you have and you didn't like it, well, that's unfortunate. And of course, if you did and you do like it, well, that's fantastic. I know I certainly would love to spend more time LARPing, but, well, time is just not on our side anymore, is it? Anyway, I'd love to know your thoughts on LARPing. Chat to me on Facebook, or you leave your comments below here if you like. But on Facebook, we can open it up and have a good old chat and discover the different and decide on the different systems, because there are many, many, many different systems. But until next time, I wish you the happiest of gaming.